Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to make a video about what I learned from taking the WRX to the track. I've been to Thunderhill East maybe 5 times, and there's been a lot of changes to the car, and so I figured we should kind of pour over what we were able to kind of gather in terms of data and just see where there are areas of improvement for the driver and for the car, and just really kind of create a roadmap as to what we need to do next to become a better driver and to get faster. So let's go ahead and jump into Track Addict. Okay guys, we are inside of Track Addict, and I've got all the data logs loaded up from that East event. The first thing I can see right off the bat, which I actually had a gut feeling of, is that the car was on track for PB in first session, or on track for 205 in the first session, second session, third session, and fourth session. So it's super consistent throughout the day, and probably the limiting factor is the driver. But it's nice to see that at least I'm driving the car consistently wrong. And you can see it, the last lap was where I was on track for the 205. You look at the sector times, they are very close. So 21.7, 21.8. This one, I don't know where it was. It didn't look that great. And then the actual PB on the record, 21.7, right? And if we go ahead and look at sector 2, I expect to see something similar. So 42.4, 42.4, and 42.6. Right, and then the second half of the track is where sessions 1 and 2 we kind of lost it because we got the checkered flag and had to slow down, and so the times aren't going to look that great. But you can see what the sector times would be on the person with best lap. The other cool thing to note is it gives you your theoretical best. So I'm assuming it just takes all the best times for all the sectors and then says this is the time you should have hit. And it's really cool to see that happen on the last lap of session 4. I knew I screwed up sectors 3 and 4. Braking zones in some of the turns I just missed them or broke too early. So this is what I was expected, and it's kind of cool to see that reflect in the data. Okay, some of the other things that I learned were that there is an oil pressure issue with the car. And so if I pull up oil pressure, and I should probably pull up oil temperature. Okay. So the first thing you'll see is oil pressure in purple is from, that's not the one, that's from the beginning. Hold on, let me change the laps around here real quick. Okay. Oil pressure in purple is from lap 6 or the last lap of session 4. Oil pressure in green is from the last lap, also the fastest lap of session 3. And let's see, we've got oil temperature right here. So temperature does affect pressure as the viscosity starts to thin out. But if you look at the overlay, the car is experiencing pressure drops roughly in the same place across the track. Right, so you can kind of see that the lines and the colors are kind of blending together in the same positions, and there's a little bit of a pattern forming here. So this is going to be coming out of turn 2. We're seeing oil pressure drops into the mid-20s, and if I pull up engine RPM, this is in a high engine RPM situation, right? So we're coming out of the corner, we're at 5,000, accelerating all the way to red line, and pressure, at some point pressure will stabilize, but what's happening here is pressure's dropping. So I think there's a little bit of a starvation issue here, maybe not enough baffling in the pan, something like that. We go to the back half of the course, and I don't know what turn this is. This is after the pucker straight going up over the hill. We come down the hill, and there's also a massive pressure drop up here. And I think we get into single digits. We're looking at like 9 PSI, something like that. I think it's actually because we're going up over the hill, and we're not braking at all. So the car is kind of going into a negative G, and we're just losing oil there in the pan, or it's coming away from the pickup. Again, I think baffling would help for that. Let's see. Same situation here. This we're going over curbing, and we're going over curbing hard. We're looking, that's again single digits. And then 14, 15, again, going over curbing. So the car could benefit from a little bit of baffling and maybe even some just extra oil, right? So you can run a little bit of oil, but you risk the chance of the crank whipping the oil, but and kind of aerating the oil and causing some starvation issues. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's something I actually really want to play with. Okay, what else did we learn? Let's see here. I want to overlay. Get rid of this. I don't want to look at that one. I want to look at this. And I don't want to look at oil pressure, temperature. I want to look at RPM, throttle position, and brake. So this is the last lap of the first session, and I was kind of on track for a 205 before I got checkered, and then this is the last lap of the last session, and actually logged in at 205. And I just kind of want to compare the differences between the two laps and just kind of understand, you know, that was my first session. How was I able to get to that time so quickly? Is it something? Was it something the way I was driving the car? And then, you know, are there any differences? Are there any improvements that I can make? All right, so let's look at speed here. And it looks like coming down the front straight, speed's pretty much the same. It's going into turn 2. I'm able to carry more speed in the first session of the day, and then accelerate out of the corner with more speed. We're looking at about 4 miles an hour difference here. That carries through turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, and then towards the back half of the track, as we go into the back straight, it's about the same. It's all kind of the same, and then we really lose it. This is where I got checkered, and that goes out the window. So what did I do here in turn 2, 3, and 4? And then 5 on the personal best lap, there was a Z4 that we had to pass on the outside, so that might change things a little bit, give or take. Was it a line? Was it a line difference? Was it throttle input? Just committing, using more of the tire? Let's take a look. So I think in session, the 4th session, I was double apexing. Yeah, and we can see it here. Is there a way to pop this out? Nope. Maybe that helps a little bit more. Maybe I just pull it out. Durr. Okay. All right. So towards the end of the day, I started double apexing turn 2. And where's brake on this? We're braking in this almost exactly the same position. Getting just as hard on the brakes, but because I'm coming down tighter on the line, I have to stay on the brakes longer, so I scrub more speed. And I thought that would let me carry more speed out of the corner, but from the looks of it, going out and doing a late apex instead of a double apex let me accelerate with a lot more speed coming out of the corner. So there's a chance here that that's going to be my line from now on. Okay, so that is just data from the data logger. There's some other things that I was trying to do at this particular event. Track tire wear and track tire temperatures. So I have a spreadsheet where after every event I measure the depth of the tire and then track the tire's wear over the course of events. So this is a new spreadsheet. I just started doing this. And what I'll do is I'll have my left front, left rear, right rear for that event, so I know which tire was where. And then what I'll also do is label them tire 1, 2, and 3 so I can track the tire. I can track that one tire's wear over the events, right? So not just the position, i.e. we're going to see the most wear in the front right of the car, but also just how the tires are wearing overall. So here you can see that was Thunderhill West, and this is Thunderhill East, and then this is where tracking the tires wear over time. And for the most parts, the tires are close to within the same wear rate because I'm rotating them fairly evenly. You can also see that the front right tire tends to take the most beating. Let's see here. Was also trying to track tire temperatures. So a lot of guys will ask you, what tire pressures are you running? And it's a very difficult question to answer because pressure, the temperature across the tire dictates pressure, and every car is different and every tire is different. So, you know, what works for me may not work for you. And so it's a hard question to answer. And the only real way to know is to take temperature measurements from the tire to then optimize the pressure, which then optimizes the contact patch. Now, strangely enough, I've noticed that if I underinflate the tires, I tend to get faster times with the car. I don't know why, but there were some kind of measurement issues when I was at the track. So the first thing that happened was I was taking measurements too long after I pulled off the track, right? So I'd come through turn like 12, get the checkered flag, and I'd be cooling down the car the entire back straight, 14, into pit, the hot pits, then into the garage, right? And I didn't drive around the garage, I went straight to my parking spot. But because I have over 3 degrees of camber, the outside of the tires are kind of lifted off the ground, or the edges are lifted off the ground, and they're going to cool off just by the air blowing over them. So someone pointed out that it's better to pull directly into the hot pits and take measurements. So really, these tire temperatures are kind of useless to me. They don't really tell the whole story. You would normally look at these temperatures and say, well, it looks like you might have too much negative camber, but we don't know if that's true because we cooled off the edges of the tire. And so the tire temperatures may have started to equalize. The other thing I did notice was my rear tires tend to be a little too cool. Our compounds, I think, want to be somewhere between like 150 and 230, and the fronts are getting there. The fronts are there, the rears not so much. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that, but that's just another thing to note. So lesson learned from this event is that I need to bring my pyrometer into the hot pits, and maybe after 3 or 4 laps where I'm actually putting down consistent times, pulling immediately, and take some tire temperature measurements to then better adjust my hot pressures to optimize my tires. Okay, so there's actually one thing that I forgot to mention here, and it's the trail braking rotation of the car. So prior to the new suspension, the car was very easy to rotate under trail braking, and that's kind of gone away. And I want to get it back. I think I was faster with that rotation to trailing. So it's got something to do with the rebound and the compression settings. And if we think about it, I think the reason why it was rotating under braking is that we are lifting weight off the rear of the car and kind of pivoting around the front of the car, right? I'm currently running rebound settings that were kind of like a baseline provided to me by MCS. And I think the rear rebound might be set too high. So if we understand what rebound is kind of the expansion of the coilover, and that expansion force is provided by the spring, and then the valving inside of the coilover controls the rate of expansion. Because I want the car to pitch forward more, I need to run less rebound, and less rebound will enable that expansion to happen quicker and let kind of the weight go to the front of the car and lighten up the rear. At least I think that is what I need to do. So for the next event, I'm going to take one click of rebound out of the rear of the car and see if that helps the car rotate under trail braking. So that is one other thing that is my potential takeaway from going to the track, and we're going to try that out at the next time we hit the track. Okay, so the last thing I want to cover is kind of learning about the track itself. And so if you saw the previous video, there's some talk about me missing braking points because there are no cones out there. And so I was struggling to find my braking points visually, and also missing turning in too early. And so someone on the Facebook group mentioned lines on the course, which I've never seen before. And here they are in the video. We'll play it through at full speed. And I'm not sure if you were able to see that. So if we kind of roll back here, and there's our first line, there's our second line, and our third line's up here actually. And I'm turning in somewhere between these two lines, and it was suggested that I move my start of my turn into the last line. So you can see here I'm already pulling away from the line, and because of that I'm apexing this turn 14 a little early, and I want to move my apex out by about 3 feet, and someone described it as to the patch with a lot of rubber, or to the curbing with a lot of rubber. So we come in here at full speed. I think they're talking about this section of the curbing here, and you can tell I am missing it. I'm touching the curbing maybe 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet too early. And because of that, I run wide between 14 and 15 early, instead of a little bit further down the curb section, and that makes me turn in early, and I have to wait on the throttle. Right, so I'm assuming if I were to come out a little wider between 14 and 15, get a later apex out of 15, I could have a straighter line going down the straight and maybe get on the gas a little bit earlier. So that is a huge area that I need to work on, is 14 and 15. And you can see that kind of those mistakes happen again into turn 1. So again, there are lines. We just missed it. There are lines going into turn 1. There's 1, there's 2, and I'm turning in early. It was suggested that I wait until that second line and then initiate my turn in for the exact same reasons, allowing me to get on the throttle earlier. And now turn 1's scary as all hell because it's fast, but we'll try. We'll definitely give it a shot. The next turn I think it was talked about was turn 6. Let's see if the computer can catch up with me here. It's not going to let me skip ahead like that. Here we go. Turn 6. And again, there are lines. So one line and 2 line. And I'm turning in too early. All right, so I've passed first line, actually initiated the turn in before the first line, and it was suggested I wait until the second line. For the same reason, get back on the gas earlier and commit to it earlier, and carry more speed into the back straight. Then obviously, with this very, very high-speed corner, everyone always talks about just lifting. I step on the brake, so maybe the next time I'll grow a pair and try to just let off the throttle. I think for the rest of it, it's decent. So to me, those corners are the ones that I most likely can see some significant time improvements, and those will also be going into my notebook and making that something I focus on the next time I am at Thunderhill East. So guys, that just about covers all the things that I took away from my event or my time at Thunderhill East. I hope you guys found it informative. And thank you very much for watching. And we'll see you at the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.